A Christmas and New Year cruise on Azamara Quest around the south coast of Australia to celebrate a special birthday. We flew Cathay Pacific from Manchester to Perth. It took over 24 hours, including a long stopover in Hong Kong. Perth, the capital of Western Australia, is on the Swan River, which is so wide at this point it gives the appearance more of a lake than a river. The waterfront here has been smartened up with lots of nice restaurants and bars. The Swan Bell Tower was Perth's Millennium Project. The District Court building just across the road from our hotel. Amongst its skyscrapers, Perth still has quite a number of Art Deco buildings, and quite a few from the 19th century. Somebody's idea of a medieval London street. Perth has two cathedrals. St George's Anglican Cathedral was built in the 1880s. St Mary's Catholic Cathedral was originally built in the 1860s. A major reconstruction in the Gothic style was started in the 1930s but didn't get very far due to lack of funds. In 2006, a major modern extension was eventually completed. We board Quest at Fremantle, the port for Perth. A full day at sea brings us to Albany. Founded in 1826, Albany is the oldest European settlement in Western Australia. A shuttle bus was provided to bring us to the centre of town. St John's Anglican Church, dating from the 1840s, is the oldest church in Western Australia. Despite its new roof, the Patrick Taylor Cottage is the oldest dwelling in Western Australia, dating from 1832. It was extended over the years, but the original part of it was made of wattle and daub. A 19th century digital clock made in America. A short stroll down to the waterside of Princess Royal Harbour. After spending Christmas Day and Boxing Day at sea, we arrive in Adelaide. We get the train from the port into central Adelaide and then a tram to the area by the market. The temperature was well into the 30s and rising all the time. Following mentions on Australian MasterChef, we were keen to see the Central Market. We didn't think it was anything special, so we went to the Hilton Hotel nearby and used their free air conditioning and Wi-Fi before heading back to the ship. Next morning, Quest is anchored off Kangaroo Island. We've booked a ship's tour to see the Australian sea lions in Seal Bay. This is a national park, and the visits are tightly managed to protect this endangered species. There are fewer than 12,000 of these sea lions altogether throughout Western and South Australia. About 800 of them live in this colony. On the way back, we stop off for a look at Pennington Bay, which is considered to be one of the best surfing beaches hereabouts. Quest is waiting for us, and behind it you can see the mainland of South Australia. We have 2 sea days before arriving in Sydney Harbour early on New Year's Eve. Passing through Sydney Heads, the water is choppy and the weather is murky. That's the Manly Ferry on its way out, and its rival, the fast Manly Ferry. Our first view of the 2 great icons of Sydney. Turning left into Darling Harbour, then right into White Bay, where we will berth at the new cruise terminal. In the evening there was a terrific thunderstorm with torrential rain that rather washed out some of the on-deck festivities. Closer to midnight, it had eased off considerably.
Happy New Year! Say Happy New Year, Albany.
Happy New Year.
Midnight approaches. New Year's Day morning, we take ourselves to Circular Quay to get the ferry to Manly, and the Sydney heads are looking a lot brighter today than they were during the sailing. New Year's Day is a major holiday in Australia, and thousands of people are heading to Manly. Most of the cafes and restaurants were shut. We managed to find a cafe with a very nice cheesecake and coffee. Here's our return ferry heading in. We're being overtaken by the fast ferry. The afternoon is getting very hot now, so as soon as we could, we got back inside the ship. 3 o'clock next afternoon, it's time for us to leave Sydney. Radiance of the Seas has arrived at the overseas passenger terminal. And stormy weather is arriving just as we leave. After a full day at sea, we're arriving at Hobart, Tasmania. We need a tug to push us against the strong winds and currents onto the wharf. Once safely alongside, we can walk straight into the old city centre. Along the old waterfront, they seem to be fond of modern street sculpture. This commemorates one of the many Antarctic expeditions that embarked from here. The museum and art gallery, and there are some Art Deco buildings around. The statue is Sir John Franklin, who was governor here before heading off on his doomed expedition to find the Northwest Passage, where he and all his crew died. The sculpture represents Franklin's ship, the Erebus. St David's Anglican Cathedral was built between 1868 and 1936. Heading back towards the waterfront, and we pass the old Treasury building. Parliament House. The historic waterfront is being transformed into a smart leisure destination. whole row of floating fish and chip shops. As the clouds roll in, the sky turns a menacing reddish colour. This is caused by bushfires which have been burning out of control inland. This evening is the White Night, a buffet served outdoors by the ship's officers. People are encouraged to wear white. We also have the Azamara Waves, where we have the opportunity to thank as many of the ship's crew as possible. Among the flag bearers were most of the Magic City Opera group. For us, they made the entertainment on this cruise probably the best we've ever had. One final day at sea before we reach Melbourne, where we disembark. We're staying in a hotel very near Chinatown. A reminder of home. The trams in central Melbourne are free. St. Paul's Anglican Cathedral was built in the late 19th century. Flinders Street railway station, and Federation Square. Walking back to the hotel, we pass through some of the narrow laneways, filled with lots of cafes and restaurants. We took an open-top bus tour, which gave us the opportunity to see some of the striking modern developments around the former Docklands areas. We passed through some of the older residential areas. The exhibition hall was built in the 1880s. St. Patrick's Catholic Cathedral. Melbourne Cricket Ground. Highly sought after residences nearby. And the final stop near Federation Square. And so to Auckland, where we spend a few days just hanging out with our relatives, enjoying the mild weather and the sunshine. Rangitoto Island. Browns Bay has become a bit busier since we last visited a few years ago. A free public barbecue near the beach. Plenty of cafes and restaurants to choose from. The path leads up from Browns Bay to Chris and Helen's house.